You're about to discover 4 key reasons you should take cash, not future cruise credit, for a cancelled cruise. I'm Gary Bembridge. This is another of my cruising tips for travelers. At the moment, the cruise lines are offering really big incentives. If when they cancel your cruise, you take future cruise credit, you get 25% bonus. In some cases, it's even gone as high as 200% bonus in the case of Virgin voyages. So that's a big, hefty incentive for taking future cruise credits. However, I'm going to talk about 4 key reasons that I think you should think really carefully before you take that future cruise credit and go more for cash. First of all, even though we may not like to address this, there is a chance or even a possibility or a probability that not all cruise lines are going to survive this crisis. Now, the cruise lines at the moment are churning through enormous amounts of cash. Some of the big groups like Carnival Cruise Corporation are spending almost $1 billion a month. Now, what the cruise lines are doing to mitigate this is they're putting their ships into cold layup, which basically means they send crew home. They really wind down the ship, so it's costing much less. But they are burning through a lot of cash. So it's not clear, despite all the fundraising that's been going on, that all cruise lines will survive, especially at the moment when we don't know how long the shutdown is going to continue for. So you need to bear in mind there is a chance that the cruise line that you're going with for future cruise credit may not survive. Now, it is probably likely that the big groups, Carnival Corporation, which of course has Carnival, Holland America, Princess, Seabourn, AIDA, many other cruise lines, Royal Caribbean, which of course is Celebrity, Azamara, of course the Royal Caribbean itself, they have some links with Pullman Tour. Then you've got Norwegian, which is Oceania, Region 7 Seas. But they may end up, for example, we just don't know, they might have less brands coming out of this, but we just don't know. So bear in mind, when you take future cruise credit, you need to be very confident and sure that you are happy that the cruise line that you're taking the future cruise credit for is going to survive this crisis. The cruise lines are making it increasingly difficult to take cash, but if you persevere with it, you can. So for example, at the time of recording, Royal Caribbean were saying it's going to take 90 days for me to get my cash back. Norwegian Cruise, which just got cancelled when they cancelled a whole month more of cruises, they have a very specific window, less than 7 days, when you can actually go online and apply to get cash rather than future cruise credit. So they're certainly making it very difficult, but don't let that difficulty get in the way of you doing the right thing for you. The second consideration, this is one that I think is really, really, really important, is that you want to make sure that you've built in and give yourself the maximum amount of flexibility when it comes to chasing deals. It's really important to understand that as you look at 2021 and maybe even to 2022, there is going to be much more capacity than there are people chasing cruises. So despite all the hype, despite all the stories you're hearing about people booking, the reality is a lot of people are going to be very nervous about traveling and nervous about going cruising again. And there is going to be much more capacity. And I believe very, very strongly that we're going to see prices and deals improving significantly in 2021. I think we're really, really going to see that once the cruise lines actually know when they can really start up, when they know which ships they're going to be sailing, when they know what itineraries they can operate. That is when we're going to see the big deals coming, because that's when they know they have inventory that they can genuinely, absolutely sell. And they're going to be pushing hard in a very competitive market to get ships full. If you've locked down future cruise credit, of course, you're linked to one specific cruise line, but you might find you can going to get amazing deals as you are able to look across cruise lines, across itineraries. So actually, by taking future cruise credits, you're locking yourself in and potentially locking yourself out of phenomenal deals. And this was a big, big driver for me to decide to actually, I'm going to take cash rather than the future cruise credits, because I want to have so much more flexibility. And already I'm seeing that now as I look at some 2021 cruises. If I'd stuck with a cruise line, I would actually had a worse deal than actually having the ability to switch around. And that's going to become much better as we move forward over the coming months and into next year. So take the cash and build in the maximum amount of flexibility you have to chase those deals. The next key reason for taking cash rather than future cruise credit is you may find that your interest and passion, desire for cruising and cruising on a particular cruise line may change and evolve. If you've taken a future cruise credit, you're committing yourself right now to cruising and also cruising on a very specific cruise line. There's 3 things I think you need to consider as you think about your passion and desire for cruising. If you're watching this, you probably are a big fan of cruising, you're pretty sure you want to go cruising, but things could change. And by having cash, you have that flexibility. First of all, because you might find actually that itineraries are not what you expect them to be. It's likely as we start up cruising that itineraries that are laid down in the brochures and online for 2021 and even into 2022 may not actually operate as planned, because no one really knows yet which regions are going to open, what ports are going to open, where ships are going to be. The itineraries that are set for 2021 were set many years ago, and so much has changed since then. So you might find if you've locked yourself into future cruise credit with a particular cruise line, the itinerary that you really want to do, they might not be offering in 2021 or beyond. So you might really get frustrated because you've got a future cruise credit, you have to use it on a specific cruise line, and they're not giving you the itinerary that you want. The other thing that may change your passion and drive to go cruising is we also don't know yet what all the rules and regulations and procedures are going to be around cruising. So you might find there's certain testing protocols or certain insurance you have to have, whatever it is going to be. We just don't know yet exactly what that's going to be. So you might find actually when that all settles down and it's clear how cruising is going to operate, certainly before there's a vaccine in place, you might actually find actually that doesn't appeal to you. You just don't really like that area. You don't want to go through testing or whatever it entails, but you're then locked in because you have a future cruise credit rather than cash. The other area, which is sort of linked to something that may make you change your mind around cruising, is we also don't know what the impact on the onboard experience is going to be. Now, based on some of the things that we've seen, and again, we just don't know, you might find that there's more limits on what entertainment's offered on board, for example, because of more social distancing practices or whatever. You might find that because the cruise lines have taken such a big financial cost, they're looking to cut costs. So you might find on board there's perhaps less things included in the fare for free, or you might find the prices have gone up. So you might find that drinks become more expensive, or Wi-Fi becomes more expensive, or excursions become more expensive as they try and recoup some of the money that they've lost or through some of the deals. So we just don't really know what the onboard experience and the costs associated with that are going to be. We also don't know yet how the whole airline industry is going to shake out. There's certainly lots of indications that there could be less availability, prices could be higher, so getting to and from cruises may be more expensive. So you just don't know. There's lots of unknowns around that onboard experience and costs. So actually by having the cash, you again have much more flexibility as that becomes clear. If you've got a future cruise credit with a specific cruise line and you don't like what they're doing with the onboard service or the procedures or the extra costs they're building in on board, you have nowhere to go because you're locked in. The next key thing that you might want to consider is it's uncertain times, you don't really know what's happening, and actually cash is probably better to have than future cruise credits. Of course, you're going to get a bonus by taking future cruise credit, but times are so uncertain, we just don't know what's happening with our finances, the economy and all that kind of stuff. So actually banking cash, in many ways, for me anyway, feels much more comfortable, because I do believe I'm going to get great deals next year. So although I'm throwing away some of those bonuses, I think I can recoup them by doing some clever buying as deals come on board and are available. So I just think having cash just seems much more prudent with all the uncertainty on board. It doesn't mean that I don't want to support cruising. I'm already looking out, scoping out what my plans would be, but keeping that flexibility is something that I think is going to be really important moving forwards. So there's some key reasons why I personally think that you should be looking at taking the cash option rather than the future cruise credit option. Hopefully you found that helpful. I have loads more advice and tips and videos which will help you with your whole cruising journey as we move forward. So why don't you watch another one of those right now?